girlfriend of his I didn't want around me in the dressing room. I asked her to leave. The hatred battle's on again.
And it exists.
And there may be his side of the story, which is different than mine, but that's what I've seen, and that's the only thing I know.
Does it make you sad? Given
I feel terrible about it, because if you want to know the truth about Randy, I still like Randy a lot. I would love to, be a friend of Randy's. My kids love Randy. My daughter and my son grew up knowing Randy. Matter of fact, a few years after Randy quit talking to me, I kept buying Christmas presents and putting Randy Savage's name on them, because there was no Christmas present from Randy. It was hard to explain to my kids that Randy wasn't around. So it's been hard, and I like Randy to this day. I talk to people that have an opinion about Randy, that he's not making sense, he can't remember their name, he doesn't remember meeting them, and stuff like that. And different people have an opinion about Randy, and I just wish that he would come back around, because I'd love to talk to him.
Thanks for being so honest. We got more to do with this man, Hulk Hogan. This is number 2 for us. Back in a moment. When Hulk Hogan left Vince for WCW, he changed his image to Hollywood Hogan and started up the NWO. Most people agree that it was groundbreaking stuff and that Hulk and Eric Bischoff were the driving force behind it. Not surprisingly, Vince didn't think it was groundbreaking stuff. We asked Hulk, does Vince not give Eric Bischoff the credit he deserves?
Eric has good instincts. Eric Bischoff, if he would have stayed on track, would still be in business today. He just had a bunch of different people. He was a victim of his own success. He basically got unfocused and started listening to a lot of the wrestling talent and got off track.
Vince Russo. You were right about Vince Russo, weren't you? Vince Russo had some big success, late 90s. In your book, you talked, though, that you're not a big fan of Vince Russo, are you?
No, not really. I don't know if I ever said he had any big successes, because I don't know of any that he had. I know he was a writer for the WWF.
Right.
And all of a sudden he became closer to Vince than just a writer, and became part of a whole regime of writers that helped the direction of the company with the attitude. Vince Russo came to the WCW, sold them a bill of goods that he was responsible for the whole WWF. He took responsibility. I knew right then that Vince is the guy responsible.
Vince McMahon.
Vince McMahon, yes. And when he came to the WCW, basically he, was part of the demise, in my opinion, of what happened with that company.
And what did happen? What caused it to come unglued? Because, as you say, it was a great payday. It was great success. And, in fact, when Eric Bischoff did this show, he said to us, he said, I'll come back and do the show anytime you want if we ever lose one ratings week to Raw. And, of course, we know what happened subsequently. So take us back inside and tell us kind of what went wrong.
Well, the first thing that went wrong is they were competing against a company called the WWF that didn't punch a clock. The WWF, the McMahons, live this business. This wrestling company is their personal family. This is their life. 24 hours a day, it's in their blood. On the other hand, the WCW, if I would call it 5 minutes after 5, I couldn't get anybody in the company. They were already punched out and on the way home. If I call Vince McMahon at 4 o'clock in the morning, he'll talk wrestling with me. That's the difference in the companies. Then the smaller things that happened was Eric got too full of himself, and Eric repeated to me, Vince will be out of business. Vince McMahon will be out of business next week. I said, please don't say that. That's never going to happen. Vince McMahon's not going anywhere. And it was a situation, once we were on top and we had Vince McMahon down, instead of letting him up, they should have kicked him and kept him down. That didn't happen. Eric basically had a lot of people around him that didn't live this business 24 hours a day, and that was the beginning of the
What happened
demise.
with Goldberg? I mean, you helped to make the guy a star, and the guy was a star, but he's basically gone now. He's not in the WWE. What went wrong with Goldberg?
Well, Goldberg's career is alive and well, and he's making major money right now wrestling in Japan. Nothing really went wrong with Goldberg other than he started out in the wrestling school. He got noticed very fast, and he was given a very big push. And he basically didn't go through the many, many years of paying the dues that most wrestlers have, and he took advantage of the situation in WCW. There were guaranteed money, guaranteed contracts, and when you get injured, instead of getting back as quick as you could, most guys would stay out as long as they could because there was guaranteed money. Bill did what he had to do to make it work in the WCW. He never had any other experiences other than that.
Could Vince make him a star in WWE now?
Yes, he could.
Would you make that move if you were Vince?
Would I?
If he was
Of course I would. Of course I would. That would be huge, to bring Goldberg into the WWE and give him what I call Titan training, which is what the company used to be called, Titan Sports. I don't know if it still is or not. But that would make Bill a huge star. I just don't know if Bill wants to put that much time in and Bill wants to be on the road because it's a huge commitment.
As big as Hulkamania, I could only think of one thing, NWO. Walk us through the evolution of NWO. How did that come to be?
Well, it came about when they brought Kevin Nash and Scott Hall from the WWF down to the WCW. They were looking for a third partner. I was filming a movie called Santa with Muscles in California. I called Eric and I said, brother, what about me as the partner? We threw it back and forth. We talked with Ted Turner and said the only thing that hasn't been done in this wrestling business is turn Hulk Hogan into a bad guy now that I'm so popular. And when we did, it was a momentum shifting move. It made people go, what's going on there? I'm going to stay there. When I came out and said, hey, training, prayers, and vitamins, one thing, I did it for the money. It shocked the wrestling world, and it just really gave that NWO the shot in the arm with Nash and Hall defecting. That was huge news. And when Hulk Hogan teamed up with them, it was the icing on the cake. And that NWO thing could still be running if it was handled correctly.
Well, what was wrong? Why was it not?
Well, it got watered down in the WCW. It got watered down in the WCW, and then it kind of fell apart. It was resurrected in the WWE this last year, and there were a couple of problems. Number one, Vince had a problem with people cheering me. And that doesn't have to be a problem because they're going to start cheering Nash and Hall, even though we're the bad guys. All the good guys like The Rock and Stone Cold have to be able to handle that. Sometimes that gets out of perspective. They can't handle it. On the other hand, there were some other personal things with Scott Hall and where he was going with his life that Vince wasn't real secure with, so he decided to disband it and go with the Hulkamania theme.
You talked honestly in the book about how you treat your body well. Did he party it away?
Did he party it away?
Yeah.
I don't think he's partied it away, but I think...
He had greatness right there for him. I mean, the guy's a huge talent.
Yeah, well, some guys don't really care about greatness. Some guys care about just getting a little money in the bank, and I'm not saying it's him, but some guys care about a little money in the bank and a couple main events, and then that's good enough for them. Then they can drop their guard. I could never drop my guard like that. I'm too worried about staying on top and not being caught, not nobody taking my spot. And everybody has a different level they want to reach in life, and my goals were different than Scott's. Not that he's doing anything wrong. If he wants to sit home and raise his kids, that's great. If he wants to sit home and raise his kids and then go nuts at night, that's his own business.